The mansion looked like a palace carved out of pure gold. Massive iron gates opened slowly as our car approached, revealing a driveway long enough to host a parade. Crystal lights illuminated the pathway, reflecting off the marble fountains shaped like swans. Everywhere I looked, people were dressed like royalty, millionaires, CEOs, politicians, all gracefully stepping out of luxury cars. I gripped Ethan's hand, my husband, hoping he would smile at me, reassure me, tell me I belonged here. But instead, he pulled his hand away as if my touch burned him. "Don't be clingy," he muttered. My heart tightened. I tried to laugh it off. "I'm just nervous. Your mother's mansion inauguration is a big event. I want to make a good impression." He sighed sharply, adjusting his cufflinks. "Yeah, well, don't draw attention to yourself. Tonight needs to be perfect." Perfect, his favorite word. We had practiced for days. How to walk, how to greet, what to wear, how to smile politely. I thought he was nervous. I thought he wanted me to shine next to him. I thought he loved me, until the moment the grand doors opened. Inside, chandeliers dripped from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. The hall smelled of roses and expensive perfume. Guests whispered, laughed, toasted champagne. Cameras flashed as the prestigious Hartwell family made their appearance. Regina Hartwell, my mother-in-law, stood at the center like a queen. She was tall, elegant, wearing a diamond necklace worth more than our entire apartment building. She glanced at me from across the room and frowned, a deep, sharp frown. Ethan immediately stiffened. Then he said the words that shattered me. "My mother doesn't want you here." At first I thought I misheard. "What?" Ethan leaned closer, jaw clenched. "You heard me? She wants high-class, sophisticated guests tonight. Not someone like you." My throat closed. "Someone like me?" He looked away, embarrassed. "You don't fit in. Just go home." "You'll ruin everything." The room spun. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, waiting for him to say he was stressed, waiting for anything else. But all I got was coldness. "Ethan, I'm your wife," I whispered. "I've supported you through everything. I spent weeks preparing." "Yeah, well, it wasn't enough," he snapped. "Just go. Leave through the side door." Side door, side door. Like a servant. I felt humiliation surge through my veins, hot and bitter. "What did I do wrong?" His voice lowered to a hiss. "You exist, that's all." My heart stopped. He walked away before I could reply. Just like that. He fixed his expression, plastered on his charming smile, and blended into the wealthy crowd as though he never knew me. A hostess approached with 2 gold name tags. "Mr. Hartwell, your tags." Ethan took one, then hid the other behind his back. I reached for it. "Is that mine?" His mother stepped up behind him. She plucked the second tag from the hostess and dropped it inside her clutch. "No," Regina said, "we don't have one for you." Her tone was cold, but her smile, fake, stiff, never faded. "Regina, Mom, please," I whispered. "Tell me what I did wrong." She leaned in close so no one would hear. "You married my son." Her perfume choked me. "Lavender and ice. You trapped him when he was vulnerable. And now he feels obligated to drag you along," she said. "But tonight is about legacy, power, reputation. And you, dear, simply don't qualify." My chest ached. "I love your son." She chuckled softly. "Love is cheap. Image is everything." I felt myself shrinking, breaking, dying inside. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Not here, not in front of them?" "Please," I whispered one last time. Her next words sliced straight through my soul. "Walk out quietly, or I will have security escort you." My voice trembled. "Regina..." She straightened her dress and smiled for the photographers. "Be grateful I'm giving you the choice." Ethan didn't even look back. The hostess avoided my eyes. Guests pretended I wasn't there. I walked through the hall like a ghost, unseen, unwanted, erased from my own husband's world. The side door was small, dimly lit, cold, nothing like the grand entrance I came through. As I stepped out, the chilly night air smacked my face. I hugged myself, shivering. I wanted to scream, to cry, to break down. But something stopped me. A voice. From inside the hall, Regina's voice, sharp, irritated, angry. "Is she gone?" she asked. Ethan replied, "Yeah." I told her she wasn't wanted. Something shattered inside me. And then Regina said something that would change everything. "Good. Once she's out of the picture, we can finalize the inheritance transfer." "Inheritance?" I pressed back against the wall, heart racing. Ethan whispered, "Relax, Mom. She'll sign whatever I tell her." Regina scoffed. "She better, or she'll regret ever marrying into this family." My pulse thundered. Inheritance? Sign what? Plans behind my back? Things handled once I was gone? Suddenly I wasn't hurt, I wasn't broken. I was awake, dangerously awake. They thought I was weak. They thought I was disposable. They thought they could humiliate me and walk away unscathed. They were wrong, so very wrong. I wiped my tears, pulled out my phone, and pressed record. The game had just begun. I stood in the quiet alley behind the mansion, my phone recording everything. The cold night air bit at my skin, but I barely noticed. My hands shook, not from fear, but from a rising, burning determination. I had uncovered the first layer of their plan: humiliation, manipulation, and inheritance schemes. But what I didn't know yet was how deep the web went, and how far Regina and Ethan were willing to go to erase me from their lives. The next morning, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Hart," the voice said calmly. "This is from the law firm representing the Hartwell estate. You need to come in immediately. Your presence is required for discussions regarding Mr. Hartwell's will and estate plans." I froze. Estate plans? My pulse quickened. Was this connected to the mansion? To Regina's cruel words last night? Or was it something more sinister? I arrived at the law office, a modern building with polished floors and intimidating glass walls. Inside, a team of attorneys awaited, led by a man in his late 40s, suit crisp, eyes sharp. "Mrs. Hart," he began, "we have documents that require your signature. Your husband, Mr. Ethan Hart, and his mother, Regina Hartwell, have certain expectations regarding the estate. But you, as the legal spouse, are a primary party." My hands trembled slightly. "Expectations?" I asked. "Yes," he said, opening a leather folder. "You are technically entitled to a portion of the estate under your late father-in-law's original will. Mr. Hartwell's new documents aim to limit or redirect your rights, but legally, your signature is necessary to finalize many aspects of the property, trusts, and investments." I scanned the papers. My stomach twisted. Wealth beyond imagination, investments, properties, companies, and in the fine print, clauses designed to pressure me. Sign or face litigation, sign or lose access to certain assets, sign or risk being publicly humiliated in the eyes of powerful people. I looked up at the lawyer. "And if I refuse?" He hesitated. "Then proceedings could become complicated. Miss Hartwell, the family wields influence. It's unlikely they will let you make independent decisions without confrontation." I clenched my fists. Influence. Power, money. Words Regina and Ethan had used against me. Words meant to keep me small. And suddenly I realized the truth. I wasn't unwelcome because I didn't fit in. I was unwelcome because I had power they underestimated. A legal loophole, a clause, a forgotten line in the original will. This was my weapon. When Ethan arrived, red-faced and nervous, I finally understood his panic. He had always believed that wealth and influence could control me. That humiliation and pressure could bend my will, that I could be removed quietly, erased without a fight. But he miscalculated. I looked him in the eyes. "I know everything," I said. "The mansion, last night, your mother's words, and now, these documents." His expression flickered from panic to desperation. "Elena, listen. You don't understand. My mother, she's powerful. You can't fight her." "Watch me," I said softly. Regina appeared behind him, gliding into the room like a shadow of authority. Her eyes scanned me with amusement, as if she were looking at a toy she could break at will. "You are bold," she said, voice silk and steel. "Bold, but foolish. Wealth, connections, influence, none of that can help you. Not against us." I took a deep breath, holding the papers in my hand like a sword. "I'm not here to fight your wealth. I'm here to fight your lies." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "Elena, don't do this." "I already am," I said, my voice calm, sharp. "And tonight, you'll see just how much power you underestimated." Regina laughed softly. "Powerless girl," she murmured, "standing in a lion's den." But I didn't flinch. I had already begun recording the conversations, documenting the threats, the manipulation, the lies. And for the first time in years, I felt the rush of control. The realization that wealth and status weren't the only kind of power. Knowledge, truth, courage. These were stronger than any mansion or inheritance. I signed one document, refusing to relinquish my legal rights. The lawyers nodded, some hiding faint smiles of approval, others cautious of the storm they were witnessing. Ethan's face paled. "You can't do this," he whispered. "Mom will ruin you," I smiled faintly. "You already tried," I said. "And look where that got you." Regina's smile vanished, replaced by a sharp edge I had never seen before. "You will regret this," she said, tone cold and final. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. My next steps were already planned. I would expose the manipulation, protect my legal rights, and show both Ethan and his mother that the woman they underestimated would not be silenced. Because tonight, I realized something that I had always suspected but never truly embraced. Humiliation could be endured, betrayal could be survived, and power could be reclaimed by those who refused to bow. Ethan may have thought I was weak. Regina may have thought I was disposable, but I was neither. And as I walked out of that law office, the wind brushing against my face, I whispered to myself, "This is only the beginning." The morning after the law office meeting, I awoke to a storm outside. Rain hammered against my apartment windows, dark clouds swirling like a mirror of my thoughts. Every word from last night haunted me. Regina's cold dismissal, Ethan's trembling panic, the legal documents clutched in my hands. And yet, amidst all the chaos, I felt a flicker of clarity. This wasn't just about humiliation. This was about control, about truth, about taking back what was mine. I decided it was time to confront them directly. I returned to the Hartwell mansion under the guise of formal business. The driveway was wet and reflective, shimmering under the estate's lights. I wasn't nervous, I was deliberate. I wasn't a visitor, I was a rightful heir, and I intended to prove it. Inside, the staff barely looked at me. They had been trained to ignore me, to treat me as an inconvenience, a ghost. But this time I ignored them as well. My eyes locked on the grand staircase where Ethan and Regina stood, exchanging hushed words. Regina turned and saw me. Her smile froze. "Elena," she said carefully, "you're early." "I'm here for the estate discussion," I said calmly, holding the folder of documents tightly in my hands. Ethan's eyes widened. "You can't, Mom, she shouldn't be here." "I'm already here," I interrupted. "And I'm not leaving until everything is resolved." Regina's laugh was sharp. "Resolve. You have no idea what that word means in this family. You are a child trying to play in an adult's world. Step aside." I took a slow step forward. "I am not a child, and I am not stepping aside. The estate, the inheritance, the trust, all of it is legally mine in part, and I am here to claim my rights." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you really think money and law will save you from me?" I felt a spark ignite inside me, a fury I had never tapped before. "No, but knowledge will, exposure will, and courage will. You may have wealth, Regina, but you do not have the truth on your side. And I am holding it." Ethan stepped in, trying to mediate. "Elena, please, this isn't the time." "This is exactly the time," I said, cutting him off. "You humiliated me at the mansion inauguration. You called me unworthy. You excluded me from the family's most important night. You attempted to erase me. And now you are here expecting compliance." "I will not comply." Regina's lips tightened. She motioned subtly, and a few of the staff members edged closer, as if ready to enforce her command. But I did not flinch. I opened the folder and held the documents in front of her. "These are the original clauses, the signed agreements from your husband and late father-in-law. Every attempt you've made to manipulate or coerce me has been recorded. Every conversation, every threat, every insult. And I am prepared to take this public if necessary." For a moment, the air between us was electric. Silence hung in the hallway like a storm about to break. Regina's eyes glinted, not with fear, but with calculation. "You dare?" she hissed. "Yes," I said with a calmness that unnerved her. "Because I know my value, I know the law, and I know that humiliation cannot erase truth." Ethan looked like a man caught between two fires. "Mom, she's crossing a line." "She crossed the line the moment she married you, Ethan," Regina interrupted sharply. "Do not pretend you are innocent in this. She's a guest. She has no authority here." I stepped closer. "Authority comes from law and inheritance rights, and I have both. You, Regina, have arrogance and wealth. That will not protect you when the truth is exposed." Ethan's face softened for a brief second. "Elena, maybe we can talk." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Talking is over. You humiliated me. You lied to me. You tried to erase me. Now it's my turn to speak, and it's my turn to act. Regina's nostrils flared. You think you are clever. You think you are strong. You are nothing but a child playing with fire. I held her gaze. I am no child. And fire is exactly what I will use to claim what is mine. At that moment, one of the lawyers stepped in, clearing his throat. Mrs. Hart, if I may, your signature is required on these papers, or the estate distribution cannot proceed. I smiled faintly, a mix of determination and steel. Then let the distribution proceed. But it will proceed on my terms, not yours. Regina's face went pale, Ethan's jaw dropped. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted. I am not leaving, I continued. Not until every claim, every manipulation, every exclusion is addressed. The estate, the trust, the inheritance, mine. And anyone who attempts to remove me will be held accountable. Ethan swallowed hard. You're serious? I nodded. More serious than you will ever understand. I was your wife, Ethan. I supported you. I believed in this family, and now I will protect my rights. Against both of you, if necessary. Regina finally took a step back, her mask of calm slipping. Her lips thinned and her eyes sharpened. She realized she had underestimated me, and that realization, brief and terrifying, left her exposed. You will regret this, she said, voice cold but wavering. I have already endured worse, I said, and I have emerged stronger every time. Tonight, you will see that underestimating me was your greatest mistake. For the first time, Ethan looked like a man uncertain of his own mother, and perhaps of himself. I turned and walked toward the grand windows, letting the rainlight reflect off my face. The storm outside mirrored the storm within me, and in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer a guest in this mansion. I was no longer invisible, I was a force. And the confrontation had only just begun. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside the Hartwell mansion. Every second felt heavy, the air thick with tension. I had stepped into the lion's den, fully aware now that this confrontation would not be simple. Regina's arrogance had been shaken, Ethan's loyalty questioned, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Power, real power. The kind that comes not from wealth or status, but from truth, courage, and unwavering resolve. I walked slowly toward the main hall where the boardroom meeting was supposed to take place. Lawyers, staff, and a few family advisors lined the room, all eyes flickering nervously between Regina and me. Whispers ran through the crowd. Everyone sensed that the balance of control had shifted. Regina's icy stare followed me. I see you've decided to push your luck, Elena, she said, voice as sharp as a blade. I don't need luck, I replied steadily. I have my rights, I have the law, and I have the truth. Ethan tried to intervene, but I raised a hand. Stay out of this, I said. His eyes widened with both fear and disbelief. He had always assumed I would comply, always assumed I would bend under pressure. Tonight, I was unbreakable. One of the senior lawyers stepped forward. Mrs. Hart, before we begin, we need to verify signatures and clarify the estate distribution. Mrs. Hartwell, you've attempted multiple adjustments without Mrs. Hart's consent. That must be addressed. Regina's mask of control faltered slightly. I am the matriarch of this family. My word carries weight, she said, attempting to reassert authority. Authority doesn't override law, I said sharply, my voice echoing across the marble room. Every attempt to manipulate me, to remove me from the process has been documented. Threats, coercion, intimidation, it will all be submitted if necessary. A murmur ran through the room. Even Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Regina's lips tightened, her composure cracking. You are daring to challenge me in my own home? She hissed. I am challenging the injustice, I corrected. You and Ethan attempted to erase me, humiliate me, and rob me of my rightful share. I am here to prevent that. Nothing more, nothing less. Ethan stepped forward, voice low. Elena, please, think about this. My mother, she's powerful. You're making this harder on yourself. I looked at him directly. Ethan, I've endured your humiliation. I've endured Regina's insults. I've been erased, insulted, and treated as disposable. Do you think I'm going to step aside now? No. Tonight the truth will be heard, and my rights will be recognized. You may have been my husband, but you are not my protector. That is my role now. Regina's eyes flared with anger. You are nothing. You will never control this family. I smiled faintly. I don't need to control your family. I need to protect myself. And if protecting myself means standing against you, then so be it. The lawyers began reviewing the documents. One by one, signatures, clauses, and amendments were verified. Each time a clause confirmed my legal rights, Regina's face tightened with frustration. Ethan's panic became more evident, his hands trembling slightly. He realized the game had changed, and for the first time, he was powerless to stop it. "You think you've won?" Regina spat, voice dripping venom. "But your defiance will cost you everything." "Everything?" I repeated calmly. "I've already lost nothing that matters. I've lost a husband who betrayed me and a mother-in-law who underestimated me." "That is not everything. That is nothing compared to the strength I've gained." I turned to the lawyers. "Proceed with the verification. Ensure all clauses protecting my inheritance remain intact." As the documents were processed, a shocking revelation came to light. One of the clauses, an old, forgotten provision in the will of Mr. Hartwell, the late patriarch, stated explicitly that any attempt to coerce or manipulate heirs could nullify specific transfers of wealth. That clause was now enforceable against Regina herself. The room went silent. Even Ethan couldn't find words. Regina's face went pale. This cannot be," she stammered. "It can," I said, voice steady and unwavering. "And it will. You cannot bend the law to your whims. You cannot erase me. You cannot humiliate me. I am standing on the side of truth and justice, and the law is on my side." Ethan's lips parted as if to argue, but I cut him off. "No more excuses, no more pleading. You underestimated me from the start, Ethan. And now you will watch as I claim what is mine, without your approval, without your interference." Regina attempted one last power move, signaling her staff to remove me. But the lawyers stepped in firmly. "Mrs. Hartwell, any attempt to forcibly remove Mrs. Hart would be illegal and recorded. We advise against it." Her anger boiled over. "You will regret this, Elena. You think you are clever, but you will fail." I stepped closer, meeting her icy gaze without flinching. "Regina, I have already survived your hatred and your schemes, and I will survive anything you attempt next. Underestimating me was your greatest mistake." The lawyers finalized the verification. The estate documents were now legally binding, securing my share of the inheritance. Regina's schemes, threats, and manipulation had been neutralized. Ethan looked defeated, realizing that his role as manipulator had collapsed. I left the room with my documents in hand, the storm outside reflecting my triumph. Rain poured over me, cleansing the tension, washing away the humiliation I had endured. For the first time, I felt free, powerful, and untouchable. Tonight, I had reclaimed my life, my rights, and my dignity. But one truth lingered in my mind. Regina and Ethan would not stop plotting. Their empire might be shaken, but they would seek revenge. And I had to be prepared. The confrontation had ended, but the war had just begun. The days following the confrontation were intense. The mansion, once a symbol of Regina's power and influence, now felt hollow. Whispers followed me wherever I went. Staff members glanced at me with a mixture of fear and respect. Even Ethan avoided my gaze. The tables had turned. For the first time, the architect of humiliation, the woman who had tried to erase me, was no longer untouchable. I arrived at the mansion for a formal review of the estate's operational management. The lawyers were present, as were a few trusted advisors Regina had brought in. Yet the atmosphere had shifted. Every step I took through the grand halls was calculated, deliberate. I was no longer an outsider. I was a participant with undeniable authority. Regina, as always, attempted to assert her dominance. "Mrs. Hart," she said sharply, "you may have legal documentation, but this mansion, these assets, and this family's image are mine to control." "You will not!" "I control what is legally mine," I interrupted firmly. "Your assets, your legacy, your social image, those are yours. But your schemes, your threats, your manipulations, they no longer affect me. I am untouchable because the law and the truth are on my side." Ethan swallowed hard. I could see the realization dawn in his eyes. The man who had once controlled me through threats, guilt, and humiliation had no power here anymore. He had been complicit in their plans, but he too had underestimated my resilience. The lawyers began to outline the implementation of the estate division. Every property, every asset, every share was listed and confirmed. When they reached my section, I remained calm, asserting my rights at every point. I requested clarifications, demanded adherence to clauses protecting me from manipulation, and ensured all communications were documented. Regina's face twisted with frustration. For months she had relied on fear and control to maintain her position. Now all her strategies were rendered ineffective. She could not intimidate me, could not manipulate the process, and could not erase me. "You will regret this," she hissed under her breath. I smiled faintly. "I have endured worse, Regina. You underestimated me from the start. That was your first mistake. Your second was thinking intimidation could bend me. That was your greatest mistake." Ethan, still attempting to salvage some semblance of influence, stepped forward. "Elena, can't we just compromise? It doesn't have to be a war." I looked at him steadily. "Compromise is not needed, justice is. I'm not here to fight you, Ethan. I am here to ensure that what is legally mine is respected and what is right is upheld. You had your chance to treat me as a partner, as an equal. You failed. Now I enforce my rights." The lawyers finalized the documents and the signatures were collected. My share of the estate was now secure, legally binding, and protected against interference. Regina's fury was palpable. Her hands trembled as she realized she had lost control. The matriarch, once untouchable, was now powerless to undo what had been legally established. Ethan approached me privately, voice low, almost pleading. "Elena, this doesn't have to ruin everything. I still want a future with you." I stared at him. For years, I had stood by his side through unemployment, humiliation, and lies. Tonight, the man I loved, or thought I loved, stood as nothing more than a bystander to my triumph. "You had your chance, Ethan," I said calmly. "But your choices betrayed me. Your loyalty was never mine. Your words tonight mean nothing. I am no longer the woman who bends for others' whims. I am free. And you are irrelevant to my future." Ethan's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but I walked away. The storm outside mirrored my feelings, relentless, cleansing, and final. The mansion seemed smaller now. The grandeur that had once intimidated me now felt superficial, hollow, irrelevant. True power, I realized, came not from wealth or status, but from truth, courage, and resolve. That night, I sent copies of the verified documents to the lawyers, ensuring every clause, every provision, every protection was enforceable. Regina's manipulation, once her greatest weapon, was now her undoing. Every threat she had issued, every attempt to intimidate me, was documented and ready to be used in any future dispute. For the first time in years, I felt unshakable. The fear that had haunted me, the humiliation I had endured, the betrayal I had suffered, they were all behind me. I had reclaimed my dignity, my rights, and my freedom. As I stood by the mansion's balcony, overlooking the rain-soaked gardens, I whispered to myself, "I am stronger than they ever imagined. I am untouchable, I am free." Regina and Ethan had underestimated me at every turn. They had believed wealth, status, and intimidation could control me. They were wrong. And tonight, I would rest, knowing the next steps, if they dared to challenge me again, would be faced with the full force of the truth and the law on my side. I had survived humiliation, I had survived betrayal, and now I had emerged victorious. The weeks following the legal confrontation were tense but deliberate. I had secured my share of the Hartwell estate, but I knew that Regina's and Ethan's pride and arrogance would not let the matter rest quietly. Power, influence, and control were their currency, and they had just been reminded that I, the woman they had humiliated and underestimated, had equal footing. I returned to the mansion one final time. This was not a social visit, nor a plea for reconciliation. This was to finalize everything, to secure my rights, assert my authority, and deliver a message that their schemes could no longer harm me. The hall was grander than ever in the morning light. Sunlight reflected off the crystal chandeliers and marble floors, casting prisms of color around the room. But to me, the beauty of the mansion no longer intimidated. It was just a backdrop to the drama about to unfold. Regina was already there, standing in her usual commanding posture. Yet today, I noticed a subtle tension in her shoulders, a tightness around her eyes. She was a queen without an army. She had been stripped of the intimidation she relied on. "You've returned," she said, voice carefully measured. "I assume this is to finalize the estate?" "Yes," I said, stepping forward confidently. "And to make one thing clear, Any attempts to manipulate, intimidate, or exclude me from my legal rights will have consequences. This is the final settlement, and I will ensure compliance." Ethan appeared behind her, shifting nervously. "Elena, you don't have to push her," he said quietly, almost pleading. "We can settle this peacefully." I shook my head. Peaceful would have been allowing me respect, inclusion, and dignity. That opportunity passed when you both tried to erase me, humiliate me, and control my life. Tonight, we are merely formalizing what is rightfully mine. The lawyers stepped forward, bringing the final copies of the estate documents. They had verified, double-checked, and reinforced every clause, ensuring that no loophole remained. I signed first, deliberately, making sure each stroke of the pen was witnessed. Regina's lips thinned as she signed reluctantly, her authority hollowed out by the legal protections now in place. Ethan followed, his hand trembling slightly, his eyes not meeting mine. "You've changed," Ethan said softly, almost like an observation rather than a question. "You're unrecognizable," I smiled faintly. "I've always been me. I just refuse to let you or your mother define me. Humiliation, betrayal, and control can shape a person, but only if that person allows it." I refused. Regina tried one last power move. "You think you've won, but family is everything. Influence, status, connections, they still belong to me. You cannot survive here alone." I turned to her, calm and resolute. "I don't need your approval. I don't need your validation. I have survived your power games. I have reclaimed my legal rights, my dignity, and my voice. And I will thrive, not because of you, but despite you." Ethan looked down. "Mom, maybe we overestimated her." "Yes," I said quietly, "you did. And that is why everything has changed." The lawyers packed up their documents, leaving me with copies of every signed paper. The estate was now legally divided and secure, my share untouchable, and my protection clauses enforceable. I was no longer at the mercy of Regina's manipulations or Ethan's vacillations. As I walked through the mansion one last time, the rain from the previous storm glistening on the marble floors, I realized something crucial. Wealth, status, and manipulation were fragile. True power came from courage, knowledge, and the refusal to be erased. I stopped at the grand balcony overlooking the gardens. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light over the fountains and manicured lawns. I breathed deeply, feeling the tension, fear, and humiliation of the past months dissolve. I was free. Regina and Ethan had been forced to confront their failures. They had underestimated me at every turn and had paid the price with their influence diminished, their schemes revealed, and their control shattered. Ethan approached one last time, voice low, almost apologetic. "Elena, I never realized—" "You never realized," I interrupted. "You didn't want to realize. You only cared about convenience, control, and inheritance. I trusted you, I supported you, and you betrayed me. That is why you are irrelevant now." He lowered his eyes, unable to respond. I turned away, walking toward the exit. Each step echoed like a declaration of victory. The mansion, once a symbol of my humiliation, now felt like a stage where I had reclaimed my narrative. As I stepped out into the sunlight, I whispered to myself, "I survived betrayal. I survived humiliation. I reclaimed my life. And nothing they do can ever take that from me again." The wind carried away the remnants of fear and doubt. I had entered the Hartwell mansion as a timid, unacknowledged outsider. I left as a woman respected, powerful, and untouchable. And in that final moment, I understood the truth that had taken months, tears, and courage to realize. No one can define your worth but yourself. No one can erase your power unless you allow it. And even the most formidable adversaries cannot control a heart and mind determined to rise above betrayal. The Hartwell mansion, Regina's empire, and Ethan's illusions of control were all left behind. What remained was mine, freedom, dignity, and a future I would command on my own terms. I had won. Not because of wealth or law alone, but because I had refused to be silenced, refused to be humiliated, and refused to bow. And that finally was victory.